Hello, and welcome to this edition of People in Transition. I'm your host, Bob Durst. I've been hiring, firing, and mentoring executives, frontline employees, interns, and job seekers in companies around the world through a host of transitions, some difficult, but most very good. I work with people in Hong Kong, India, Australia, and across the United States. What sets them apart? A lot, but there's more they have in common. And one of those commonalities is transition is a part of life. This experience has given me a bird's eye view on a variety of trends, economies, industry disruptors, and transitions that are big and small. It also brought me into contact with the thought leaders and decision makers you need to meet, the people who can make the difference that matters to you right now. Imagine knowing exactly what to do next and how to know it's time to make your big change. The insight track you're going to access during our future episodes is better than a crystal ball. It's the exact information you need to take that next step. Whether you're a new grad applying for your first professional job, someone looking to transition your work experience into a promotion, launching your own company, or maybe even starting to plan your retirement, you're in transition, and this series is for you. We all know transition can be scary, but it doesn't have to be. And it's even fun when you have VIP access to the future you want. Are you tired of the uncertainty of being passed up? We'll share with you the tools and skills that can take your dreams to the front of the line. So, if change is on your horizon, or maybe just the thought of change, you won't want to miss this discussion. It could be the exact edge you need to turn transition into an amazing opportunity. Cori Haber, I'm so pleased that we have you on today's episode. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Cori, for those who don't know you or your background, why don't you tell us something about your life and your work journey?
Okay. Well, it's about myself. I was born and raised in Nashville, Tennessee. Went through school, went through college, very focused on fine arts, graphic design. And then at some point around 2014, my grandpa was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer at age 92. And then that's when I decided I was going to just kind of stop my career for a little bit and move in with him and become his primary caregiver so that he wouldn't have to move out of his home or into a facility, and really give him the best end of his life that he could have. And after he passed away, I kind of transitioned careers because of that experience. So my experience with him really showed me how difficult it is to live with cancer, how difficult it is to have all of these out-of-pocket costs that you would never even think about. I mean, health insurance was great, but I really truly saw by living there that there are lots of things that come into play, different foods you want or can eat, things like a hospital bed, having a chair that helps you stand up, stair lifts to go up and down stairs in your home, caregivers overnight. So it really took me in the direction of wanting to work in the healthcare industry, and it led me to Aflac because I really fell in love with their cancer plan and the benefits that you can receive, and I really have a passion for that type of benefit now, and I really believe it's something everyone should at least learn about. So that's really my drive for what I do every day now is, I use that past experience and put my emotional and passion, excitement behind it to educate everyone that I can.
Wow, what a story, and what a giver that you are, Cori. Thank you for that. Where have you, either for yourself and your life story or for someone else who has asked you to help them out, where have you been a part of a transition, and talk about the component parts of that transition?
I think that one of the biggest transitions that I've been a part of was helping one of my really good friends in growing their own business. They did start a business, and I was in a place where I was able to kind of brainstorm with them. I was still living with my grandpa, but it really gave me something to kind of distract on the side sometimes. And I helped them grow that business to what it is today. And so they now have a large amount of employees. They're very successful, and I spent a lot of time in helping them with strategies, ways to make employees happy, ways to get more customers, and what they do. And what they do is help people in saving on their finances as far as bills that they have to pay. People have so many everyday bills, and sometimes larger corporations, I think, take advantage of people and charging more than they need to. So that was really a huge transition that was a part of my life and that I helped someone with, is growing that business, making it appeal to other people and showing them that it's really there because we care, because others care.
Cori, do you think that transition management is different for an organization or for that business, let's say, than it is for an individual? And if you think it's different, where is it different?
I think they're somewhat different. I think that for a business to transition, it involves more of focusing on what makes that business run, which are the employees and the systems that you use and the benefits you offer and the way that your administration and your executive level is put together and they work together and how well they run. I think for an employee, transition is more along the lines of moving forward, moving up, being successful in one specific company, and growing as an individual, and learning more skills, having more responsibilities, and eventually one day being a leader where they are. Versus a company, I think their transition is more in the sense of growing the business, making their business employees happy, making their customers happy, and really making it the best business model that it can be, especially customer service side. So I think it's a larger scale for a business.
I read somewheres that individuals transition to, on average, 10 new positions in their work life. How can that individual set themselves up to be better prepared for the transition that they're going to go through?
Well, I think it's important, as far as being prepared, to always have a goal and always have your eyes set on the next step in your career. I don't think it is a good plan to go into a job. I mean, do a great job at it is great, but to just go in and do the best you can and have no idea of what your plan is and why are you doing the best you can? Why are you working so hard? It should always be because you have a goal in mind. Like, your goal could be to go from part-time to full-time. Your goal could be from going to a customer service employee to a manager, all the way up to maybe the CEO one day. I think as long as every step of the way you have some sort of goal that you are working towards, and I think it's even better to have one that might seem unreachable, that it's just almost impossible, that you work so hard to try and get there that you actually end up getting there one day.
Cori, what are the struggles or setbacks that you've seen individuals deal with when they're in transition?
I think the two largest setbacks I've seen fellow coworkers in my past is, number one, they want to transition, and even if they're given the opportunity, sometimes they are not provided with the tools and education they need to be successful in that new transition, whether it's a new position or just a new business. I think that that's definitely the hardest part, is when you are given an opportunity but not given the resources.
How does your health impact how you go through a transition?
I think that's a hard question because everyone's health circumstances are different. I do think, as far as mental health, you need to be happy in what you're doing. And that's the key. That's going to make you thrive. It's going to, you'll even get a better night's sleep because you'll love what you're doing. I think that also feeling like your employer cares and having their support, even if it's not specifically health support, but just support in general, that you're doing a good job and they recognize you. I think that just puts everyone at a better level as far as being healthy, because they are going to be more concerned about themselves and take better care of themselves when they feel like others care and want them to take care of themselves.
Cori, transitions are of all kinds of sizes, volumes, and velocities of them. From you transition between clients that you service You transition between companies, you transition from being well to sick, transition between working and retiring. So transitions are all around us. You've gone through a number of transitions yourself personally.
Yes.
What keeps you grounded when you're going through those transitions that you've experienced?
Well, I guess a lot of things I've been through, like you mentioned personally, I've been through the transition of being a caregiver for my grandpa to having a career in what I felt was helpful to him. I have had many transitions as far as just medically. I've grown up with epilepsy, and that hit every part of my life. That's been a part of the transition, and that in itself is a transition. I've gone from, something that when I was younger I was very concerned about, they were very cautious, to now I live a very normal life, and it's really not even a thought. It's just I take a medicine for it every day, and that's it. So that's a big transition as far as for myself personally and medically. As far as for careers, I feel like I have had many transitions just because it has not suited my health physically very well. I mean, when even as little as going from a job that's daytime hours to one that's overnight, to working extreme hours, 50 plus a week, to working very part-time, working remote versus going to meet with people on a day-to-day basis. I think they've made me more successful. I think they've made me more of a creative, out-of-the-box thinker. And I think it's really taught me how to problem solve for myself. Anything that comes along, I feel like since I've had so many run-ins with different types of transitions, I have really learned how to make them a smoother transition and make sure that I have a plan for the future when I see one approaching.
Cori, you're very active on social media, certainly on LinkedIn, where I've found you. What role does social media play in helping either yourself or people that you know deal with transitions?
I think the biggest thing about social media that helps people with transition is it really gives them a support system. And especially on LinkedIn, it gives you that professional support system, people that are in maybe the same careers, industry as you, that understand the transition you might be going through if it's career related. But then also the nice thing about LinkedIn is they're also people. They've also had personal and medical transitions. So it does provide a very, very large support system that I think is just almost impossible to find in real life in person. I mean, granted, there's nothing, you can't compare in-person supportive group of people that you know and you've grown up with to social media, but I do think having the support of people that are almost strangers that become friends of yours, that have the same ideas, have the same outlook on life, I think it's very helpful to always know there's someone that understands how you feel and that they've possibly been through it before. And that's why I'm very active on there, because I find it to be very helpful to have that support system, and especially and socially. It really gives me people that I can talk to and connect with, that they kind of understand, many things about me. My personal life, my family life, my medical life, my career as far as job, my hobbies. I mean, there's always someone on social media that can relate, and that's what I like about it.
Cori, you've talked a lot about things that might work or might help a person in their transition. What have you seen, either again for yourself or that you've seen in others, what doesn't work to help a person in their transition management phase?
I think a key thing that I've learned doesn't work is to always rely on someone else to essentially tell you how to do things, tell you what you need to do, how to set your goals, how to reach those goals. I think transition is going to be very difficult for any individual until they learn how to prepare themselves, set their own goals, and be a creative thinker and really not rely on anyone, and know how to take care of what could be coming on their own.
I have to say that for me, and I've been through a number of transitions in my personal life and work life, during the day, I'm pretty fearless. deal with transitions pretty straight on. It's in the middle of the night. Those gremlins come out and they whisper in my ear, that I'm not good enough. I've finally been found out. I'm an imposter. I'm too slow. I'm too not thoughtful enough. All of those kinds of things. How do you deal with those gremlins in the middle of the night?
I try to fall asleep pretty fast. I try to focus on what those gremlins at night, but then I make notes, I put them aside for the next day, and I review what I might have been harping over. I guess I have to say I feel like I've learned in the past 4 to 5 years not to let it affect me too much, not to harp on one thing. Because what's done is done. I did my best at the time I was doing it. And that's all that anyone could ask for. That's all that anyone can do. To review something, your day and things like that over and over, I think is just going to drive someone crazy. And you'll never feel successful, and you never will be successful if that is something that you let get to you, I think.
Communication plays a pretty significant role in what you do. You're talking with people, you are sending them things, you're communicating with them. What have you seen to be the most effective method to communicate for a person who's in transition? Is it one of those, I know what you want to hear, and so I'm going to tell you? Do I talk straight to you? What can a person do from a communication standpoint to be effective in their transition management?
I think when it comes to helping people and learning about their transitions, it really is more about what's not so much what's effective in communicating with them, but what's effective for me. What can I learn about them? What can I learn about what they're trying to accomplish, their own personal life? And then I feel like that's the best way for me to assist them and try and help problem solve and give them suggestions. I've never been the kind of person that likes to tell someone what they want to hear. I mean, I'm always the kind of person that I go shopping with a friend, they put on a dress that's just horrible, and I'm going to tell them because they asked for my opinion and they asked for my help. And personally, I like people to be very truthful and brutally honest with me. So that's kind of how that's what I find to be the most effective in relationship building and just communicating with others and helping them through transitional periods, and then myself as well.
Cori, let's say a friend of yours comes to you and said that because of the COVID crisis, their company went out of business and they're out of work, and they're looking to you for support. What are the 2 or 3 or 4 first things that you would coach them to do now that they're in transition?
Well, I've actually had that happen, honestly, very, very many times in the past few months because of everything going on. And what I have been doing is I get to know them. I ask them to set up a call. Let's talk a little bit. Let me learn about you, your experience, what your interests are. What are you looking to do? And I do give them ideas as to good resources, good connections to reach out to that could help them, things that they could do to be better noticed if they are looking for a new opportunity. But then I also take what they've told me and I try to connect them with people that I know are very like-minded and very likely to help them as well, because it kind of takes a village. I don't feel like one person can find a solution for someone all the time. And the more people that you can get involved to help someone, especially in job searching, the higher chances they're going to have at finding what they're looking for and having a very smooth, happy transition.
I love that concept of takes a village. That leads to kind of my next question, which is the notion of networking. And unfortunately, people oftentimes have negative connotations with networking and probably therefore don't do it enough.
Right.
Or they do it when it have to have it as opposed to doing it all along the way. How do you help someone to become more effective in their networking process?
That's a hard one because I definitely myself, I feel like I'm a very successful networker and I really enjoy it. I think that's the key thing. But I receive a lot of negativity still. And I think that, that's a very hard thing to overcome. And it takes a while to kind of shake it off and get past it. Just because you're right, a lot of people have this notion that when you're networking, everyone wants something from you. And that's not really always the case. And that truthfully, it hurts me sometimes because I genuinely do want to get to know everyone that I reach out to and try to start up a conversation with. And it's not always job related. It's almost never job related. If I talk to someone and then they feel like they'd like to work with me, that's wonderful. But I always am just genuinely trying to get to know them, have better relationships, have more people to lean on and have as a support system, and vice versa. Be there for them if they ever need me down the road. So that would be my suggestion to anyone who's trying to be more successful at networking is, to care about others, to genuinely care and want to get to know people, and not focus on work, not focus on business. Your main goal should not be to work with someone. Your main goal should be to get to know someone and, decide later if you want to work with them. I personally, I don't want to work with someone till I get to know them, because I want to work with people that are like-minded, just like same thought process as me, same very caring personality, but driven. And so I'm pretty picky with who I work with, especially when it comes to the Aflac benefits that I do for businesses. I like to really almost interview the business or the owner or the HR director before I decide if I would like to work with them, which I feel like is not something that's very common. There are a lot of people, I think, that are just willing to work with whoever, no matter their circumstances. But I don't think that creates lasting, strong relationships and genuine networking.
I had a guest on an earlier episode, and this will stay with me forever, who said that really effective networkers, they give more than they take. That notion in terms of that I have to be present and I have to be willing to open myself up, that changes in my mind the whole perspective in terms of how I should view the network process.
That's a great way to sum it up. I think that's a great saying, and it makes perfect sense. It's true.
Cori, let's talk about transitions between jobs, and you've done that a few times, and it sounds like you've helped people do that a few times. How can a person be better prepared for a over the telephone or in-person interview? What's the 2 or 3 things that you would suggest that they do to prepare?
I've always been a big fan of dress the part. Get up, get ready, dress as if you're going to meet someone in person if it's a virtual interview. If it's not, then you should definitely dress the part. And I think that gives anyone motivation and confidence. I think another thing is to really take some time beforehand and just kind of think about your life, your goals, what you enjoy doing. What about your job that you're going to, if you're interviewing for a job, but if it's just an interview about yourself, really sit and process and think about just experiences that you can touch on. I think the most successful interviews include stories, and personal stories at that. If you don't have stories, I feel like it's a very boring and not an exciting interview, not a good way to make a connection with someone, and not a good way to really show your personality and show yourself.
Facts and figures are quickly forgotten, but stories kind of stay in my brain. That's going to help me in terms of remembering that candidate so much more.
The last thing I was going to say is I think it's very important in interviews to give it that personal touch. You just because if it's a job interview, it doesn't have to be strictly conversation about that job and about that business. I think it's always nice to tell a little bit about yourself. Tell a little bit about your family and where you came from, what you like to do. It really shows who you are, I think, as a possible future employee, just to show your personality. A lot of people that feel like when they go for an interview, if it's business related, they have to only talk about business. But I think it's the personal side that really makes every interview and every person shine.
You've been on a number of interviews yourself, and you just said that you oftentimes interview your businesses and HR people and so forth who work with you. What's the most challenging question that you've either used yourself or that you've heard someone else use? And what do you think that challenging question, what do you find out about that person?
The most challenging question that comes up in my job when I'm working with potential new clients is there are times when we talk, but then they are very against learning about what I do, and put it bluntly, learning about the Aflac benefits. I usually ask them why. Like, why are you against learning? Why are you against education? And that's one thing I feel very passionately about. No one ever is forced into doing anything. They don't have to do anything they don't want to do. But I think that to not educate yourself to the fullest is a huge mistake, and it also is a huge loss for business. Every business owner, any leader in a business, one that's very successful with happy employees, and I say that because you can have a successful business and have very unhappy employees. It's always going to be more successful with happy employees because they're going to stick around, and retainment is key to success, I think. And I think that those leaders that have that type of success with their employee relationships and their business in general are ones that are open-minded, and they never think they know everything. They always are open to learning as much as they can about every possible option. They're educated, and I think education is power.
Those people who have launched on a lifelong learning process, research says all along they live fuller, richer, more satisfied life. So I totally agree with you on that.
Thank you.
Many people think that to work for themselves, to be an entrepreneur, solves all their problems. What's your comments on this?
Well, it also depends on the kind of problems they're trying to solve. I think a lot of times people become entrepreneurs because they did have an unpleasant experience as an employee, whether they didn't have a manager that they liked working under, maybe they didn't have the right type of benefits, they didn't have the right type of schedule or flexibility, or things that usually sometimes it could be as simple as they didn't want to get dressed up every day in a suit, or they wanted to wear whatever they want to wear, they want to do whatever they want to do. I think that's the key reason why people become entrepreneurs. I don't always feel like it's a solution. You really have to have passion behind the business you want to start, the person you want to become, and what you're trying to do. So I think there are two types of people is what I'm getting at. I think there are entrepreneurs who become entrepreneurs so they don't have to work for anyone else and they can kind of do what they want. And then I think there are entrepreneurs that become entrepreneurs because they have something they're very passionate about and they feel that no one can get the word out there and really do it any better than they can. And they've given it their best shot working with others and working in other businesses, and then they've really found the perfect way to make it successful. And I think that's the difference for me in what makes a successful entrepreneur and what doesn't.
Let's say that you've been in a field for, 5, 6, 7 years, and you've lost that passion for the field that you're in, and you want to do something completely different. What do you say to that person who's thinking about making that kind of change?
I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think in a sense I've done that. But I do think it's important before you just leave where you have put in so much time to see if you can find that passion again. If you could change the way you're doing things, whether it's day to day, whether it's your long-term goal, the business you work for, before you completely change industries and your focus, try and find that passion again. Try and remember back what you loved about it, what you did that made you love it, before you just essentially give up. And if you do decide to change, then I think it's very important to experience what you're wanting to move into before you actually make the move, whether it's talking to people that do it, going out, kind of shadowing and observing others that do that job, researching as much as you can. Really in-person experience, though, I think is the best way to make a sound decision on that. I feel like there are people that, make that decision, and then it's a great thing that they did. They love it because they're making that decision to move away from something they didn't really love. But if it's something that they did and had a passion for, and don't feel like they do anymore, I do think it's possible to find that passion again and excitement. I just think it's a matter of changing things, the way you do things.
Cori, any resources, books, tools that you would recommend for someone who's going through a transition that you think would help them out?
For me, a lot of just using my own strength and my personal experiences and creative thinking. And I do a lot of observing. I mean, I observe, maybe I do research a little bit online and, reading as far as maybe people that have had similar experience to what I might be getting ready to transition through. Sometimes that's helpful. It's very similar, I think, to someone looking around to see what the most popular shoe is everyone's wearing, and then they go and buy it themselves. And I think that's a good way to prepare yourself, is to look at others who probably are going through that same exact transition or very similar, and then decide if you want to do it. Decide how it's going to go that way. So I think that's the best tool I can offer as a suggestion, is observation.
Cori, what are the 3 things that you want your listeners to remember from what you told them today?
I think the 3 key things that I would like everyone to remember is, number 1, and I think this is very clear from just myself, is you never know what someone's past experience is. You don't know what their past is like. And so therefore, I think everyone deserves a chance. It's never a waste of time to give someone a chance and get to know them, because you just never know. You never know what they had experienced, that you never know what they are interested in and what their life was like or is like. And I say that because I run into a lot of people that, for example, refuse to even talk to me because they might have talked to someone else from my company previously and didn't have such a good experience, or didn't connect with them, or didn't like what they had to say. But I don't think that's very fair to others, because I am a totally different person. And I feel like everyone deserves their own individual chance at getting to know you. The other 2 things is I think it's always important to care about others and genuinely care about others. I think that's something that's been lacking in our society for a long time, is genuine caring about others and getting to know people and making sure that you're as nice as you can be to them and help them out as much as you can. And then the third thing is, I really would love everyone to remember that it's important to educate yourself. Always. No one is ever at a point where they know everything and they can't learn anymore. And I think that's very important to remember, no matter who you are, no matter what your job is, and no matter what the topic is. You can always learn more.
Cori Haber, what an information and value-packed session we had today. I know that I got personally a number of key knowledge nuggets from your thoughts. I know that our listeners did as well. I'm so pleased that you were willing to come on here today and not only share, but care about other individuals. So thank you so, so much.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm so glad I got the opportunity to speak with you.
Thank you for listening to today's podcast. We're working in unprecedented times as the world responds to the recent COVID-19 crisis. The fact is that even those who are not in transition understand it could be right around the corner, next month or a year from now. The purpose of these episodes are to give listeners support and the critical tools to adjust with the winds, wherever they come. I'll continue to introduce you to guests who have successfully, perhaps gracefully or without too many battle scars, survived their own obstacle courses, and can share useful information on how to steady your ship or your world in this uncertainty. If today's message was helpful to you, please share it on social media. If you have any questions or podcast ideas for future conversations, reach out to me on LinkedIn. I appreciate your time you're investing in sharing these important conversations with me, my guests, and others who are going through life transition. Transitions between jobs, life stages, new entrepreneurial ventures, or whatever life brings. Change is constant. The more prepared you are for it, the better and easier the change will occur. Thank you again. This is your host, Bob Gerst. See you at our next episode of People in Transition.